Hi, everybody. So I'm Steve Cunningham. I am the director of ACE, co-founder. I've lived on Bridgehall Estate for the last 28 years, so I'm well versed in all of this, and listening to people speak has been very interesting, really, to see sort of how they believe that the estates are run and so forth. Now, I've been sort of involved in voluntary work within our estate for 15 to 20 years, but previous to moving here, I lived in Adswood, which was the neighbouring estate. So all my life, I've lived council estates. So basically, our estate is very similar to any other. We live in it. There are people living in deprivation. They're too proud to ask for help. We have young people struggling with education. We have people in social isolation. And a lot of the problems on the estate lead to addiction and people struggling to sort of function on a daily basis. This all in turn leads to, like I say, the children will struggle in school because they're seeing parents who are stressed on a daily basis and can't quite understand how they should perform in school when, that's what they see. They see people all over the place within their environment. So, I firmly believe that you become a product of the environment that you live in, and that the children, the antisocial behaviour is born out of that, really. It's born of frustration, and it's not that they want to be bad, but they don't know any better. So, as has been touched on already previously, people don't have the facility, they don't have the money, they don't have the transport to get to certain classes. So if, for example, a parent's got 3 children and they have to go to a session that's, it might be just one bus ride away, they just haven't got the time to do that. And also, by going to that one class, they may use up the full disposable income for that family for 1 week. So on our estate, there is one facility that is, that could be used. But yet the children, the young people on the estate are barred from using it because of the antisocial behaviour. So it's a difficult one for them to accept when they see groups from other people that are coming from outside of the estate to use the facility that should really be there for them. And that's where it becomes like an us and them, because we're kind of just left to our own devices to deal with stuff and trying to find something for these young people to do. So this facility then becomes a target where, the young people have been throwing fireworks at it. And there was a session not too long ago where they were doing that. And then, when they start to congregate, they haven't got a role model. So because they've got nowhere to go to other than to congregate between themselves, they then become their own leaders. And so it's a case of like, whoever is the oldest or most vociferous in the group, if he starts to do wrong, the others will naturally follow. Now, my home, like I say, I've lived there for the best part of 30 years. There's a real community spirit that people don't quite understand, especially if you don't live on an estate. They don't understand how they work. We have a certain loyalty to each other that is prevalent all the time. So in the last 2 or 3 months, there have been 2 or 3 sort of tragedies on the estate that, despite the lack of finances that people have got, we have raised for the 2 families involved over £50,000, and that is still rising. So that's what we've got, and that's like people. You try and explain it to people, they don't understand it. And to us, class isn't defined by money. Class is defined by your actions, and that's something that we have in abundance. And people don't necessarily understand or see that, because they're just looking at it from the outside and they're hearing stories of what happens on the estates. We've got everything we need on this estate to become self-sustainable, and that is my goal, that this estate looks after itself, and then we can start to we can start to break down those us and them barriers, because then we start to become more confident and go outside of the area and bring people in and let them see what we've done for ourselves. So in like the 47 years I've lived on these estates, I've seen people coming in from the outside, and the promises are made, and they're not false promises. But what happens is those promises are made as long as the money's there. Now, when that money runs out, those people disappear. So it's difficult for us as people to trust anybody. And I know trust has been said on quite a few occasions today, and they've got it right. You're defined by what your actions are. And so once that money runs out, those people who are coming in from the outside, they need to then show their worth and stay around. But not many do, if anybody. And so it's difficult then for the next person coming in, or group. They come in and they go, right, we've got these ideas. This is what we're going to do. And straight away, within the estates, we don't believe you. We don't trust you. That's another case of that's how it is. Now, we now believe that we have a model that is sustainable. So when things are free, it's great, because people obviously will take advantage of things that are free. But when those things are taken away because the money's run out, they're just left to their own devices. Once again, you're back at step one. So what we have to do is during COVID, we sort of ran pay what you can afford football classes for the local kids. Now, on this particular day, we had 30 children come to pay us to play football, in essence, when Manchester United, who I'm sure everybody's aware of, and one of the larger groups within the Stockport area came together to run a free football session. They had 5, we had 30. Now, they're reliant on that funding, and I'm sure that during the next holidays, they'll be back. But there's no real follow-up for any of those children. What they do is they will take that pot of money, they will come in and deliver what they've said they're going to deliver, and they disappear again. We're here. So we're on the ground, we're seeing it 24/7. Now, I kind of feel sorry for the system in that I understand these people have to earn, have to sort of provide the outcomes for the money that they're getting, which in turn pays their salaries. But we already have the outcomes. We're dealing with people. We're not just dealing with paperwork. So when these people come back to us, that's our currency. So throughout my time as a youngster, like I came from a single parent family, 2 siblings, and football was my life. That's all I ever did. And I understood very early on that's where I could leave. Everybody has a bag of troubles, is the way I say it. You carry your bag of troubles around with you. And when you go to play football, or you take part in any sport or activity, you put your bag of troubles down on the sideline. And as soon as it's finished, you have to pick it up again. Now, I fully understand what needed to be done. So when I played for Adswood for all those years, from being 6 years old, finally became first team manager, which was, that was the nirvana for me. That was me. That was my football club. So the thing what I thought was we had to reform the junior section of the club. And we did that. And we went from 3 teams to 9 over a small period, really. But what we did is we brought people together, and it kind of gave you that sense of like, kids understood, like when they came to us, it was one. And we all played in the same kit from being 5 years old to the first team as adults. And that was their club. So if they were walking past the field wearing black and white stripes, I belong to that. And that's what it is. So we've got that now. We've got like a cohesion within the community that we need to enable us to be sustainable. We would run sort of Christmas events, Christmas parties. We'd do charity events, and we would always get a really big uptake of people. and people coming together and saying, you need to do this on a more regular basis. So over the years, you know, as I've sort of worked out in life, that you have to listen to the people. You can't tell them what they're going to do. You've got to allow them to, they decide what we do. So what we did was we sort of asked people what they wanted to do, and we came up with sort of the classes that we now run, which I'll go on to shortly. But in my experience on estates, there are 5 people or 5 or 6 key people within an estate that run it. Now, I'll leave you to sort of work out who you think they may be, but I think you'd be quite surprised with the answers. So what they do, like within an estate, it's all right going getting sort of the teenagers that many people perceive to be the problem, but you're only covering 20% of the demographic. You need all of those 6 people on board. Now, those 6 people will probably never sit in a room together and never speak to each other, but they're all aware of each other within this estate. And when you get them in the same room, they want the same things. And when you've got that, you've got half a chance. If you just alienate one of those people, you've got a massive issue. It's like having a bad piece of fruit in the bowl. They're not bad people, but what they're doing is they will then slowly start to turn people against you. So you've got to have people on side. And if you have those 5 or 6 people, you've got the umbrella that you need to work from. So I bumped into Tony again. Not bumped into. Tony and I knew each other from growing up. We grew up on the same street in Adswood in the 80s. He was best friends with my younger brother, and then obviously through life we went our different ways. We reconnected at a funeral, sadly, which was also caused by mental health issues. It was a relative of Tony, a friend of mine, and we sat and we spoke about where we were at with things. And very quickly, I think we both realised that we needed each other to bring this to fruition. I've always had these ideas. I've got a vision, and we're now well on our way to sort of fulfilling that vision. But without Tony, I would never have been able to get to the position that we're in now. And he has a very vast knowledge of the funding networks, and he's got a large network of people. So it was very apparent that with both of us, we had a good team, which has been added to now, but I think we're well on our way. And what we decided was that we needed to work out what the people wanted, and the quickest way of doing that was to start a social media group. And within 36 hours, we had 1,700 people on it telling us what needed to be done. So that's from that point we came up with the idea of what we would do is we would use the local facility and we would run a range of classes, because as much as I was aware of what football did for me and did for many others as children growing up, I wanted to include everybody. I didn't want to alienate anybody from what we were doing, because this is an age-wide thing where we've got to include everybody from 2 years old to 102 years old. And what it had to be was affordable, because people want to belong to something. Now, it's great, again, as I say, these people that run sessions and they run them for free, but you're not really a part of anything. You just go into a class. These people now, our idea was that they would be a part of something, and we would become sort of a brand of our own right, where people would understand what we were and that they would be a massive part of it. So what we did is, once we'd come up with the idea, we went to see the local council about the facility, and we were met with quite a few barriers, really. We were told that with our model that we would never be able to achieve the amount of members that we were talking about. So at that time, we were talking about getting 100 members paying us £10 a month to access all these sessions. And the council just kind of like said, listen, you know, it's Bridge Hall, you're not going to get that. It's a small area. And we got it. And again, it was one of those for me where I went away and said, right, that's the end of that. But luckily, Tony's made of like sterner stuff. So we were able to sit down and work our way around it. Then we were approached by the head teacher of the local primary school who has suffered antisocial behaviours on the premises. So we went and had a chat with her, and she was absolutely fantastic. Like within sort of 15 minutes of us sitting down, she bought it. She bought the vision, and not that it was a hard sell, because I think when we do sit down and speak to people, they get it. And that's the best thing for me, is that something that was always in my mind of what could happen, I've now started to fill a minibus of people who were driving in the same direction. So what we did was, again, it was all during COVID when this came about. So we did what we could do it in the time that we were allowed to do it. So we ran local competitions, but it was all done online. So we basically paid out our own money that we didn't have at that time to sort of bring people together, you know, buy Easter eggs for the kids if they decorated their house, and to run the football sessions on a pay what you can afford basis. And by that, there was no minimum payment. If somebody turned up with 50 pence, they were paying 50 pence. What we did is we managed to do it with little or no collaboration from anybody. And in effect, we were fighting against other local groups to try and earn some of this funding money. That in the end, we said, like, do we need to? Do you know what I mean? It was degrading in a way that there was a large pot of money out there, but yet 10 different groups within the same estate all had to bid for parts of it. That, the way I see it, is that should be our money, and then we'll decide between us what we do with it. But again, that's the system, and I understand the system. So the refined offer now is that we run 26 classes a week, which will, as we go forward, we will increase upon. We run it as £10 per month, and for that £10, you can access as many classes as you want, and they go from football, lacrosse, netball, everything that you might think on a sporting side of things, up to, for the adults, we have yoga, Zumba. We're soon to be adding a slimming group, a cookery class. So that £10 encompasses everything. So if you want to come to one session a week, then it works out about £2.50 a class that you go to over the course of a month. If you want to go to 4 or 5 classes a week, which some of the younger people, when you break it down, they're paying 40 or 50 pence a session. Now, all our sessions are run by qualified coaches in whatever they do. So, for example, football, I'm a level 2 FA qualified coach. So everybody is qualified in what they do. And it's about the community taking control of what we do. So going back to a little bit, it was more about the social inclusion for everybody, and to help us to tackle mental health issues, to tackle obesity, to tackle social isolation. And I believe we're well on our way to doing that, and in a way that has to be admired from the outside, because we're doing it off our own backs. So basically that's where we're at the minute. I'm going to hand you over to Lorna now, and let her carry on from where I'm leaving off.
So where Steve's talked about how ACE was set up and our motivation for doing it, I'll talk you through what we do and what we've achieved in the last year. So I thought it might be helpful to introduce myself. My name's Lorna Stockwood. I'm originally from Stockport, and for those of you who don't know, Stockport's one of 10 boroughs in Greater Manchester, and it's the borough with the highest disparity in wealth. So you've got your £1 million houses, and you've got your estates with food poverty. I grew up about 10 minutes away from Bridge Hall, and I didn't know Bridge Hall existed. I knew Adswood. I didn't know Bridge Hall so much. And about 4 years ago, my family decided to relocate to the Northwest. We'd been living for 15 years down in London, and I'd been working in marketing, but I wanted to use the move as a transition to put my skills and experience and resources to better use into something I really cared about, which was education, child advocacy and social justice. And to do that, a friend introduced me to Bridge Hall Primary School. So my intention was to volunteer at the school and see what life was like on the estate, with a view to seeing how I could be helpful, useful. And then I became a school governor. Now, I feel quite embarrassed to admit this given this forum, but I had no background in sport and I didn't really get the importance of sport. But I have to say, it didn't take long before I was sat in a governor's meeting, and there'd be reports about children coming into school with improved behaviour and children coming with increased confidence and this sense of belonging, as well as, you know, the fact that one of the reasons I spoke to an 11-year-old boy, and it was just a general conversation. I said to him, "What do you like to do outside of school?" And he said, "Do you know what? I don't do anything. I just go home and I play on my computer or watch TV, because me and my mum have decided that the estate's too dangerous for us." And I was like, I was taken back, because I'd grown up about 10 minutes away and my life experience was so different to that. And you all know, because of COVID and lockdown, how it feels to have restrictions in place, but at least we've been able to walk there and then. But the restrictions that that 11-year-old had, and that just happened at a time when Alex, the head teacher, introduced me to Tony and Steve, and they explained about the sports hub and about after school provision, and I'm like, I'm in, I get it. And I think it took about 10 minutes for me to become a match funder. Now, I've put this slide together to explain our model. I call it the happy coincidence because it involves a community leader, an entrepreneur, and a philanthropist coming together. And we had the same objectives, but we were approaching it in different ways. And then Steve shared his vision. So it's that the community's listened to, the community has a voice, then that voice goes on to build the project for the entire community. So the community project is driven by the community and it's for the benefit of everyone on that estate. And then you add to that Tony's skills. So, I mean, he's looking at employment opportunities within the estate. Can this model be one that we can scale? And he often talks about sustainability. He talks about, can the project wash its own face? And I had no idea what he was talking about. But it's about sustainability and not being too reliant on grants, about having different funding opportunities. Whereas I'm the other side of the spectrum, I'm more what if. And I've worked with Bridge Hall for 3 years, and slowly these issues kind of rise to your attention, like adverse childhood experience, chronic illnesses, that kind of thing. And I'm like, well, what if we collaborated with the local GP surgeries and we looked at social prescribing, or school readiness is an issue. So what if we worked with the school and started like a play group for parents and toddlers? You'll see I've put an illustration of the school, and this is another happy accident because the school is the heart of the community, and we didn't understand that at first because we were looking to use the community centre. But the school is a building that everybody's visited, so it's not intimidating. And the school is located conveniently, so it's on your doorstep. You don't have to take 2 buses to get to it. And the really interesting thing is you can start with the children and attract the children to what you're doing, and then their parents and carers, extended family members, friends, neighbours. So you're targeting a larger majority of the estate quickly. And if you add to that, see you're starting in a place where you don't know the community leaders, the head teacher generally knows who those people are. The 5 community leaders that Steve was talking about. And if the head teacher doesn't know, then the parents know. And if the parents don't know, then the kids will know. So it gives you a good starting point. In terms of what we do, we start with this sports and community hub and use it as a springboard. So at the moment, I think we're doing about 26 different activities a week. And that's, you know, your conventional sports like football and netball. And then we introduce new experiences like parkour, and we've just got funding for lacrosse. And as Steve said, we're well aware that sport's not for everybody. So we start with arts and crafts or walking with the view that we can pull you in, and then you'll feel comfortable and make new friends. And you might try more active pursuits. And it's all about helping the more vulnerable members on the estate. So I spoke very briefly about food poverty and holiday hunger. So we've got external agencies who come in with food provision, but we might supplement what they do with fresh food parcels or help struggling families at Christmas. At Easter, we ran our holiday club with hot meal provision. And then we'll do other things like research programs. So we're looking at antisocial behaviour on both the Bridge Hall and Adswood estate. And we're working with youth offending in inclusive neighbourhoods. So we're going out on the streets and asking teenagers what it is they want to see in terms of sport provision. As a governor, I became aware of the fact that children on the estate don't have reading role models and aren't reading for pleasure. And I know that there's a significant correlation between reading and academic success and life outcomes. So we're working with the school and the local library to make provision more relevant to the community. And then we've got the Housing Association that has gifted us the community centre free of charge. And that's almost a year to the day when we were going to have to pay for it. So this is really exciting for us because we're aware that, you know, there are some people that we're just not reaching at the moment. So we can start to run active ageing programs and run intergenerational clubs. We know that social isolation is an issue, so we want to start a talking cafe and run that play group so that children are ready for school. I've spoken about collaboration, but quickly, we make it our work to get to know all kinds of service providers so that we can signpost them for the benefit of our members. And we also recognise that we're at a point to recognise when families might benefit from early intervention. Employment is one of our objectives, particularly employment on the estate. So if we can't create employment opportunities on the estate, and if we can't recruit from the estate, then we'll go to similar socio-economic neighbourhoods. At the moment, we've got about 10 coaches, 5 residents on the estate, and they're doing things like social media, catering, admin. And one of our coaches is doing a business apprenticeship with us with the view to starting a dance studio. And we're just about to embark on traineeships for younger residents. So the opportunities there are in business or in sports coaching. In terms of what we've achieved, I'm going to show you this slide, and it's our work from March to December. So some of the figures might be different, but I'd like you to remember that, you know, we are relatively new. It's still early doors for us. We're working during the COVID pandemic, and we're working with a low socioeconomic community that people had written off, saying that, you know, they're not going to pay. But I'm really proud to tell you that we're hitting July 21's targets. We've got about 250 paying members. But that means now we have to go and secure more match funding to make new memberships possible. We've delivered about 600 hours of coaching, about 2,000 bookings. And the thing that I really love is our membership is from a 3-year-old girl to a 67-year-old grandfather. So we really are catering for all levels and abilities. And the other thing I love is in a community like Bridge Hall, the power of word of mouth. We've got 84% of our members living in Bridge Hall, and then the rest are coming from 20 different neighbourhoods in and around Stockport. And you know, sometimes you take a step back and you look at that and you go, they're actually travelling to the provision that we're providing. So in terms of the future, what does it look like for ACE? We're going to keep it really simple. The first step is to fine-tune what we're doing in Bridge Hall and broaden the range of activities to attract those people who are interested in different things. And then we want to get more coaches and improve the facilities at the school and the equipment that we've got. And then when we've got our stall in order, we're going to look to start provision on Adswood, which is the estate that's about 2 minutes away. But you've got to remember that it's starting from scratch again. So we've got to identify those key people. And as well as that, you know, you've got to understand that it's a different culture. And then at the same time of doing all that, we're looking to partner with an academic institution because evidence in it is everything. So not only do we need that evidence to go for the medium and larger size grants, but we're working to influence public policy eventually and service provision. So, you know, we're thinking big. And in order to do all that, we need funding. And at the moment, we're going for the smaller grants because we are pretty new. We've got 250 match funders. We're match funding 250 members. And then we've started this thing called the 600 Club, where local small businesses in and around Stockport are donating an amount each month. And the larger amounts are coming from our patrons. But we're ambitious. And to do what we need to do, we need to increase the match funding, increase the 600 Club, increase the number of patrons, and go for those medium and larger grants using the evidence that we're generating. Now, we may be small, but we're not exclusive. And so all of these opportunities, anyone can come to us with ideas on how they can support us with funding. What I will say is, and I know that a lot of you are working in the same sector and I'm preaching to the converted, but the reason that I got involved is because this isn't somebody else's job. You know, people have spoken about the fact that humans are complicated and these kind of issues are quite messy, but we're members of a society and these are all issues that we're here to solve. So we're keen to hear how you think you can support us. You'll see that our website's there and our email address. We've also put together a handout for you if you're interested in learning more.